Tanto dentro como fuera del ecosistema de Cosmos existen retos y barreras que debemos derribar para poder crear el futuro que todos queremos. De igual manera, existen muchas formas de participar dentro del ecosistema, y es importante entender dónde yacen nuestras fortalezas para poder mejorar el mismo. El día de hoy nos acompaña Liam Connor, host y creador de Confident in Crypto, un excelente canal dedicado a los fundamentos que rigen e impactan la industria de las criptomonedas día a día. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Criptomonedas.do. Thank you so much once again for making us part of your weekly ritual to have valuable conversations, valuable information, and just overall interesting things that are happening in the crypto space. Uh, every single week, we bring investors, entrepreneurs, content creators, and yeah, people from all walks of life to share their experiences and share a little bit about what they do in the space. Today, we have the pleasure of having a guest that invests heavy amounts of time into making sure that everyone understand who is doing what in the Cosmos ecosystem, understanding how different projects work, and something that has been like fundamental for a lot of people is making sure no one has a single excuse for not claiming an airdrop. So, from Confident in Crypto, I would like to welcome Liam Connor. Liam, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, man. When you were saying like investing heavy and then it was like dot dot dot, I was like, hang on a minute. Like I haven't got that much money that I'm
Yeah,
putting in. But then you said time.
I got plenty
And I
of
was like,
that.
okay, that's fair. Yeah, I got plenty of time. And yeah, done a lot of airdrop claims like you mentioned as well. I think they're just like very easy things to do because I'm claiming them anyway. And it's like, hey, I might as well put this into a video
Might as well
because
enlighten
it's going to
people.
help people.
Exactly.
Yeah. 100%. I'm just gonna mute my my Discord because it's popping off a little bit.
No worries. Go
But
ahead.
feel free to continue.
Perfect. So, like I was telling you a little bit before we started the interview, we as a community are great fans of the work you do. And, like, ever since I started in crypto, I remember looking at your videos and, like, looking at, oh, wow, what's this new project? And, wow, what do you mean these guys are doing that? And that you, like I said, you did help me claim a bunch of airdrops because it's funny, but even though that I'm in the crypto space, I've never been like a tech savvy person other than understanding things on a piece of paper, but I'm the guy that usually like fights with my computer like and just like smacks it a little bit so that it works. So thank you so much for bringing so much clarity to the Cosmos ecosystem and bringing so much value with your content. Like, we really appreciate it, the community.
Ah,
Liam,
it's not a
I
problem.
would.
It's funny. It's funny, man. Even like my like viewers, they're like, "Oh, how what happened with this airdrop? Like, I'm struggling with this, and it's like 2 weeks since I put the video out, and I've already forgotten like all the like small
Yeah,
details of the claim, right? Which is like the whole
yeah,
point of having the tutorial. It's like impossible to keep up with all of the small
absolutely.
fixes you might need to do, and yeah.
Yeah, because it's a lot. It's a lot of like technical little things that you like. I don't know, like the gas fees. I remember with people having all sorts of problems with like. I think you posted a video about like Chihuahua fees and things. Or yeah, there's all these little
Yeah.
technicalities that people are not perfectly familiar with, and we were talking a little bit about that before we started the interview. It's just like the idea is that everything becomes seamless, and I think you really do help making it easy and seamless for people to interact with all these platforms, and there's great value in that.
I think it helps some people feel safe as well. Like the people who
Totally.
aren't too familiar with using Kepler and, they don't want to connect their wallet to some sites and get scammed and that kind of thing. So I think it's like really valuable for those people. Like the content I do and also other people who do tutorials and walkthroughs, it just makes them feel comfortable when they access these chains or access these applications.
Absolutely, man. I 100% agree with you. So, Liam, I would like you to start off by telling the audience a little bit about yourself. Like, how were you introduced to the world of blockchain technology, and what motivated
Mhm.
you ultimately to become a content creator?
Yeah, so yeah, it's funny. Most people have like a similar story with getting introduced to blockchain, which is through investing in Bitcoin or something similar. I actually found out about Bitcoin when it was like £7 or $7 or something like that. My friends were using it for things I won't say live, but
Yeah,
eventually yeah, everyone knows what I mean. Like back when like Bitcoin wasn't really used for much else,
yeah,
and yeah, we won't talk too much about that. And eventually, like it just kept coming up. Like I think I then like heard about it again when it was like $300 or something. And then again when it was like 1,500, which was like mid 2017 bull market. And
yeah,
I was like, oh man, I've got to actually just buy this. Like it was one of those classic, like I don't know anything about crypto. I'm just going to ape
yeah,
in if this price go up.
yeah,
And yeah, and then it went up like a lot more. So I was like really lucky with the timing. And then what happened is I was like, I'm a genius. I've like put my money in at
of
Bitcoin's like
course,
worth like yeah, of course. It's gone from
of course.
$1,500 to 20,000. So I'm a
Yeah,
genius. Like I must
you were
like
gonna go to
know
MIT
how
and
to do
start giving
everything.
classes.
Exactly. That's what happens though, because you think, oh, I got this one right. I'm going to get all my trades right after
Yeah,
this, right? So I just
absolutely.
started like diversifying into altcoins, and I went into Ethereum, and then Ethereum went up in price because it was like that altcoin like bubble at the end of 2017, like January
Yeah,
2018, and the altcoins went up after Bitcoin. And I was like, oh man, like I've just done it again, and it's like if I do
yeah,
this like 7 or 8 more times, I'm going to be a millionaire.
yeah,
And then I like bought like some altcoins. Like one of them was Ripple, which obviously was like $3 at the time. It went down. I bought like Neblio and like all these other like cryptos that like
yeah,
now are completely dead.
yeah,
And that's when I was like, okay, I don't know everything, right? Like we've all been
yeah.
there. We've all had that lesson where it's like, I don't know as much as I thought. And so I started to actually
Absolutely.
learn about blockchain. Yeah.
Yeah, it was actually time to understand what am I putting my money into.
Exactly. Yeah. What am I actually like investing in here? Like what's like the value proposition? How does it all work? Because I was like at first I was like trying to learn TA and trading, right? So like for a
Yeah,
lot of 2018, like I was like, oh, I just need to learn TA and trading, and I'll be fine. And then like by 2020, when the lockdowns happened and there was the like COVID and everything was a big thing, I was like, okay, like trading's okay, but it's not enough. And then I started like learning into like how blockchains functioned, like how Bitcoin like as a chain worked, like how blocks were built, how like the blocks are built in like an order and they point back to the previous block and all of these kind of things. I even learned about like soft forks and hard forks just to understand like on a very like simple level like how blockchain works. And then from there, it's got me to where I am today, which is where I have like a good knowledge, but I feel like the more I learn, the less I actually know. It's like one of those kind of
totally,
situations.
totally, absolutely. I think it's like that, and it's we're also like you were saying that it's just so much information. It's so many things that you have to be on top of to have a
Mm.
proper understanding. And I think that all content creators are bringing all this valuable information just help people ease into that process and really understand what's a proper form of really getting into all of this, because sure you can go into all the technical analysis and be like a master Eliotician and all those things, but maybe it's not the way that you want to interact with this space. And the great thing is that there's many
Mm.
many ways in which you can actually be a part of the ecosystem, whether that be a content creator, a developer, or anything. There's just like in Cosmoverse, just the amount of synergy that was in every single person. They were all looking to like collaborate, and maybe a lot of I remember people that had no idea what Cosmoverse was, and they just like went through the door like, oh wow, and they were just going like all in into understanding all these different ideas and concepts. And I'm sure that we evangelized a bunch of people while we were there, because we were telling every single person, like we hopped in an Uber and we are like, oh yeah, this Cosmos thing. And we had like a, like a 10-minute conversation. And then they were like, wow, that sounds really interesting. And we're like, yeah, you should come to the conference and check it out. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways in which you can actually bring value to this space.
I totally agree. And it's actually like kind of like in answer to your second question, like how did I get into content creation? Like, I think that was like my way of getting involved in the space at the time, aside from just like investing in a couple of tokens, right? I think I bought like Bitcoin and Ethereum when I did my like next wave of like investing with some knowledge rather than just aping in.
Yeah.
Um, and like that was my way of that was my way of learning like about the space. Was like, if I'm making content on it, like if you're trying to like teach someone something, that you need to understand it, so it's kind of like really helpful for your own like learning experience. And that's what the channel was originally. And over time, like you've mentioned there, it's like there's so many other ways like people can get involved, like from a development side of things, from like creating content, from like working with projects. I mean, there's just so many like avenues that different projects go down, whether it's like decentralized finance from a real financial kind of perspective, if it's like NFTs and creativity and art and that sort of
Yeah.
thing. And there's even like supply chain stuff. There's like a lot of business models that can be
Yes.
enhanced or even created around blockchain. So someone like in the
Yeah.
audience might be working in a specific sector, and they could actually one day or today like start exploring blockchain in that sector and actually find a role suitable for them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I've had plenty of conversations like with people that they were in like areas that were absolutely not related to blockchain, but they were just telling me about this challenge that they were facing in their industry. And I was like, well, maybe you should implement blockchain into that. And they were like, what do you mean? Isn't that just like a bunch of random coins that go up and down? And I'm like, no, blockchain is actually technology and you can
Mhm.
implement it for like this and that. And once you explain people
Yeah.
that blockchain is not all about just buying all these coins, holding them, and becoming a millionaire, that it actually has real world applications, it
Mhm.
just opens up their mind and it changes their paradigm about what is it that we're trying to achieve in this space. And I think it's amazing. Like when I look into someone's eyes and I see that they get that the real value is in the blockchain technology, it's great. It's great because
Mhm.
that's how we make this a mainstream thing by people understanding that they can add value to their specific business through implementing blockchain technology.
It's very financialized at the moment, which is like looking at the price of the tokens, investing, trading. Like everyone who's not in crypto, like can just sees it as a financial instrument, which is only the surface really, and it's just a very
Totally,
speculative thing.
totally,
So yeah.
absolutely. I agree 100%, which is also what brings to another question is what did you feel that it was important to create a YouTube channel focused on fundamentals? I know that you told me that you just understood that that's another way in which you could interact with the space, but what's ultimately what brought your attention to that, to creating a channel on fundamentals, and how did that turn into a profound interest in the Cosmos ecosystem?
Yeah, it's a good question. Because I did a lot of technical analysis and like price prediction videos initially.
Mm,
And I think like at first, like my vision was like, oh, I'm gonna like educate new people on crypto while I'm learning, like simultaneously. It was very much like for my learning, but hopefully like I could teach people as I went. And I think a big part of why I switched to fundamentals was actually my personal interests. Kind of realizing that the space wasn't just charts and price go up and down and trading and investing, and actually there was like a lot of value in the technology behind these chains. And like we were just talking about, basically, like how they can be used, blockchains, to enhance business models and solve some pain points that businesses and like commerce has, and so on and so forth. So I ended up shifting more towards fundamentals, um, because it interested me a lot more. I think it also fit my um, the way I was going about investing, which was kind of investing passively rather than trying to trade and kind of beat the market. So I think like one good point is that traders are very rarely good. Like very few people are good at trading. It's a very tough skill
absolutely.
set.
It is.
Um, you can be really good at charting. Like I'm pretty decent at charting, but like trading's like so much more than just looking at a chart. You've got to know when to buy and sell. You've got to manage emotions. You've got to manage risk. You've got to implement, strategies effectively. You've got to be disciplined. Like there's a lot to it, right? and it's very active. Like people like look into crypto and stocks and like, oh, if I can just like trade, or I can quit my job. But actually, like trading's full time, so it's really hard to like do your
Yeah,
job and trade simultaneously.
totally.
And so like my the way I went about things became more and more passive, which was like just picking positions for longer term periods. And like for that passive kind of trading, I kind of shifted from looking at charts a lot of the time to kind of like looking at charts for like maybe like weekly charts, monthly charts, but also looking a lot more into like which projects fundamentally are sound, because like the fundamentals are what drives the price, and the technicals, like the chart, is just like a representation of like sentiment in the market. It represents like human psychology and human actions. So although the chart's really useful for picking like entries and exits to a degree, like the actual creation of like bullish price action and so on and so forth is very much driven by like the developments within a project. And that's why I shifted to fundamentals. And then kind of going a bit further than like that, I then kind of like really doubled down on Cosmos in particular. As the second part of your question, when I was looking at the fundamentals of Polkadot, and then I was looking at Cosmos, which seemingly had like the same model to someone who doesn't really understand the intricacies and the differences. And I remember I was in like the Ivan and Tech Academy. Actually, it's one of the first
Hmm.
places I learned a lot about crypto and like, well, blockchain rather than just like charts. And I remember being on like one of his like academy Q&As, and I was like, "What's the difference between Polkadot and Cosmos?" And
Yeah.
like Ivan was like, "Oh, nothing. It's just marketing." And I like later learned that's not true. There's like a ton of differences. Um, but at the time, I was like, "Oh, if marketing's the only difference, then Cosmos is undervalued, right?" So I started
Yeah.
like looking into Cosmos, and yeah, here I am today. So it's quite a funny story actually, but that's how I got into Cosmos originally.
That's interesting. That's funny because yeah, I've a friend of mine gave me that he has like a full on marketing and publicity like background, and he was just like, well, how come all these projects are not making like much money? So yeah, it's all about marketing, right? Like they're all doing the same thing, but it's all just marketing, right? And it's all their logos. And I was like, no, like no, man, that's not how it works. Okay. But
Hmm.
I understand that point because there's a lot of people that get stuck in that. Like they think that every single blockchain project is trying to solve the same thing in the exact same way, but everyone is trying to
Hmm.
twist things in a little, a little differently. And they'll, yeah, like we said, the ultimate goal is that this becomes like background, like pretty much like white noise, and that people don't even understand what's happening behind all these platforms that they're doing. They're not even going to understand what blockchain technology is, or maybe they'll have a general idea of what it is, but the idea is just making it super simple for people to do. But yeah, that point about marketing is that's actually pretty funny that they told you that yeah, it's just marketing, man. Yeah, don't worry about it. uh
Yes, yeah. I think they're right to some extent though, from like a very basic look into this like technology. Like there isn't that much difference on the surface, right? I mean,
yep.
all these blockchains are trying to solve issues around like transparency, around kind of like being able to transact in a like in a trustless way, so you don't have to like trust the carrot part of the pie that you're transacting with. But then when you actually look further into them, you can see how they're going about it in different ways. And I think that's something that we can't expect people to see when you just look into like a project for like an hour, or like even just for 10 hours, because
Yep.
there's actually so much more to dive into.
Absolutely. Yeah, I
So
remember
there's
when
some
I
truth to
first
it.
saw. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I remember when I first saw the Sonny's video when he was explaining the entire architecture of Cosmos. That was one of the first videos I watched from Cosmos. And even though I didn't have like a super deep understanding of what blockchain was, I remember thinking
Hmm.
like, wow, this sounds incredible. And I just have to invest way more time into understanding how this is going to work. And that's ultimately what led me to become like
Hmm.
heavily invested in time and mental energy and everything in projects within the Cosmos ecosystem. First, understanding like this enormous thing that is the Cosmos, and just an amazing SDK, and it just gives people the ability to easily, build a platform and put it out there incredibly fast. And I think there's great, tremendous value in that, which brings me also to like, so you dove deep into the Cosmos ecosystem, and obviously the Cosmos ecosystem has grown a lot since even like 2 years ago, like when we first had, uh,
Hmm.
I don't know, even when Osmosis came out, and which was actually one of the first platforms that people could actually go and do their trades and this and that and discover like what an AMM was and all those things. But we've come a long way since that, and it's just amazing how more and more chains are like starting up and connecting, and just IBC is just booming. And I think the growth for 2023 is going to be tremendous, which I think is something that people should really be investing their energy in understanding how all these chains are operating and like integrating with one another. And also
Hmm.
just the people behind all of this what's happening. And what led me to another question is that that is what got us to all go to Cosmoverse for a second edition, which was an extraordinary event. Like I was always telling Cryptocito that it was great to just see all the collaboration and just see the
Hmm.
hunger for people to build something stronger together. So that's what brings me to ask you, how was your experience during the second edition of Cosmoverse in Medellin? Like, what was your perception about the overall ambience of cooperation within the community?
I loved it, man. I really enjoy the in person events. Just chatting with like minded people, chatting with people with different ideas as well. It's like you can't really do that. You can't really have that same level of discussion in the same way, like on a call like we are now,
Yeah,
or online or on Twitter or through DMs, as you can like in person, where you really get a feel for like these people behind the products and like the chains that are being built, and even like the educators like yourself, like Cryptocito, myself, all of these different people, and it's really special actually for me. Like just even at the parties, everyone's having a drink, everyone loosens up, but you're still
yeah,
able to have like these really in-depth like conversations that are really they're really pleasant to have actually, and they're just very informative as well. And they it's just I can't explain it. I can't put it all into words. It's just something that you should really experience. There's a real sense of community in Cosmos. And like even though you see on Twitter all this drama, all this like debating, all this like negativity, a lot of it is just people bouncing ideas off each other and having
yeah.
different philosophies. And in Cosmoverse, there wasn't any of that at all. It was just a
No,
bunch of people all getting together,
yeah,
chatting and having a really good time.
yeah. That was, it was amazing. Just everyone was in a completely different mental space, and like you said, everyone was just looking to work together and to understand where more than the differences in their ideology was how can we like create bridges between our ideas, because every single idea has value and we could create something bigger by, instead of just fighting each other and being like at odds with how we think or how we believe that the space should be put forward, we can build bridges and just create something extraordinary. And like you said, I think it's hard to put into words, uh, just how amazing an experience it was. And
Yeah.
we've had a couple of events already this week. There was an event in Bangalore. For the people that don't know, we had an event actually in Santo Domingo, which was Atom Santo Domingo, and it's great to see like how these small communities keep on growing and growing, and it just makes you think about, okay, so if this was like this year, how is it going to be in another year or 5 years from now or 10 years from now? Because a lot of us really
Hmm.
focusing on the long run, and I believe you are as well. Like we're all just focusing on, in the long term, where do we want this to go, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think like the community is really what people are interested in. Like obviously everyone wants to build some stuff, everyone wants to like improve business models, but um, at the end of the day, like without like that community passion and spirit and that like connectedness it actually brings, I don't think it would be as appealing to most people to be in the space. Or if like anyone's like watching who's not been to these kind of events, like they really add like an element of fun and like excitement that you can't really get, or just like togetherness or like social interaction that you just don't really get online or just focusing on the products. Like there's something like really special about the people behind the chains, right? And I think it's something that Ethan, it might have been Ethan, the founder of co-founder of Cosmos, or someone very similar was like saying like around like governance in particular on Cosmos chains. It's like actually like it's not just this like code and these proposals. There's actually like people behind like all of these
Absolutely.
chains and all of these systems. There's communities and a lot of like this governance work around blockchain is actually organizing people. It's not about tech. It's about organizing people and their ideologies and their interests and their needs and their goals. And that's something that really stuck with me. And I had a lot of like really good philosophical conversations around that with a few people at Cosmoverse. So something to think about.
Absolutely, because yeah, because we can try to make everything automatic and just trust in code and like believe that code, and but like it's yeah, that's actually a great point. It's all about the people voting for these proposals and people coming together to actually push something forward. Yeah, we're all just part of this huge network of decision making, and yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
that's I can imagine some great philosophical conversations, because I think it all started, pretty much everything starts with philosophy and with what you think about just blockchain in general. I think that's one of the most
Mhm.
important aspects to understand about blockchain, is the philosophy behind all of this. Like, I was just recording an episode yesterday about just how it all started. It all started with a person thinking like, we need a different way to do things, and that's why Bitcoin was created, because Satoshi had all these deep, like, philosophical conversations with himself and with other people, and that's what ultimately pushed him into creating something that would eventually evolve into what the Cosmos ecosystem is today. So that's a great point.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. There's a lot of philosophy behind it all. Very different from a lot of the existing like philosophies out there around finance and banking and even like just trade, especially in the art sector, around royalties and so on and so forth. But yeah, no, I agree. I agree with what you're saying.
Absolutely. And Liam, obviously, so one of the main advantages of having like this network of people like coordinating to make decisions and push a network forward, which would you say are the biggest areas of opportunity that we have within the Cosmos ecosystem? Because, like I said, I was noticing like some key aspects that people were really focusing on that we had to address. But what do you think are areas that we should be focusing on, like both experienced people within the space and new members, so they understand where they should like direct their energy now that they're in the ecosystem?
Mm. Do you mean like on a like a more macro perspective of like the space? Like where should we be pushing like the direction of these chains? Or are you
Yeah,
talking about maybe as an individual?
both,
Yeah,
just to keep it interesting.
very difficult question. um, it's a tricky one to answer. There's so many like different ways you can push like things, and I don't think any one person knows the right way to like direct the space broadly. I think it's going to take like lots of different ideas, a lot of like rough consensus, then on-chain consensus, and then we can kind of like navigate a path right forwards. I think like as a space, we really need to be going in the direction of getting new people in. That's something I think is really really important. Like people who aren't in the space already, it offers more like liquidity from like a financial perspective, like fresh liquidity. It broadens the community. It gets more users. It just has more consumers that are like using blockchain in some way, which is really important. It kind of like becomes a bit of a circle economy otherwise.
Mhm.
You can get like fresh liquidity or capital in from people. If you deliver another product they like, they might buy some more stuff. But you kind of need new people to come in with new ideas and new systems they want to build. So I think like getting new people and more people in is one of the most important things, and it's probably quite obvious, but and I don't know how we're going to get there like myself. Like we need to all figure it out together. But I think that's one of the most important things. We need to make it as well, like along that point, in my opinion, we need to make it so blockchain's not the product. Blockchain just enhances a product, right? Which means we're
Exactly.
not really like we've got a hardcore community right now, and like people who understand like how this tech works or like trying to understand, they find it interesting, but most people don't care about this kind of stuff, or they don't have
Yeah.
time to
Yeah,
care.
absolutely.
A
Yeah.
lot of people are yeah, a lot of people have families and friends, and like they want to go to
Yeah.
the pub and have a
They have a
drink, or they want
life.
to like they have a life. Yeah, very well put. Very well put. And so like they haven't got time to like understand blockchain, right? They just want to come and like maybe they want to come and like put some art on chain and be able to get royalties directly when it's resold without having to sign contracts with like companies and so on and so forth. So in order for those types of people to come in, or maybe they're just gamers who want to play a cool game and sell their like in-game items, whatever it is, like DeFi, NFTs, like they need to use this seamlessly without giving up their life to understand it. So that's why I
Absolutely.
think broadly. I'd just say like individually. I think like I haven't got actually. I'll leave it there for a second. Have you got any thoughts on what I just said?
I think that that's actually a great point because that's what I'm always trying to do. Just explaining this in as easy a way possible as I can to get people excited about the possibilities of just the crypto industry in general. Like you said, not just I'm gonna make a lot of money, but like you said, maybe I'm an artist and I'm just having a really tough time getting my art into an auction house or something, and I need to know a
Hmm.
specific person that allows me to that open the gates opens it yeah just opens the gate so that I can show my artwork. And really just crypto in general makes it so easy for people to put their work out there in ways that they had never experienced before. Or maybe like
Hmm.
if I'm a musician and I want to put out my new album or something, but I'm gonna get absolutely destroyed, like with royalties from record companies. There's a lot
Yeah.
of projects that can actually help you put your content out there. You can own your content,
Hmm.
and then you can actually work with these other artists to maybe create an amazing artwork cover for your new CD, and you can make an NFT. And but like there's just so many ways in which people can maximize every single area of their productive life. And it all
Hmm.
starts with what you said, just bringing new people in a liquidity aspect, and helping people understand how they can work this liquidity now that it's in the space, that they actually like they had a lot. I mean, I'm not saying that they had a life before and now it's like it's just that they have a skill set, and maybe I'm not a developer that knows how to code in Golang and Rust and all these things, but this is my skill set from what I typically do in my life, and now I can actually have a platform to add tremendous amounts of value to my skill set. So I think that's a phenomenal point. Just onboarding people is going to be key. And there's obviously depends on which part of the world you are. Like there's obviously countries
Hmm.
which have easier on and off ramping to crypto. There's people that have to do everything over the counter and like still have to like go and actually exchange cash for crypto. But I think the easier we
Yeah.
make it for people to come in and become invested in this environment, it's ultimately where we're going to see the Cosmos ecosystem and just the overall industry just grow to the potential that it really has, where it should really be. So I agree with you 100%.
I think it's not just invested in like with money. I think it's like just products being created that people can just buy and
Exactly.
use and consume. Like
Exactly.
it's consumerism, right? Like most people don't invest in the stock market, like outside of maybe their pension plan. Um,
Yeah.
so the reason why companies are massively valued, yes, there's like the financial element and like there are the stocks and shares and the stock buybacks and all this stuff, but like the reason they're valued so high is they have products that people use.
Yep.
They don't need to invest in like
Yep.
Apple. They just need to buy like a iPad because it's useful to them for some reason. So like for all of these chains, like they need products that people use. And
Yes.
that's actually where more liquidity and capital comes in. Like investing in this is not necessary. Obviously, it's excellent if you do. There's definitely like an element of investing in it because it's kind of like the model that chains use, right? Where you get ownership in the chain when you use it early on, right? That's kind of how these like high APRs work. With like you're an early adopter of Osmosis. Cool. Now you can actually get some Osmosis tokens and own the part of the chain and vote on the future of it. But a lot of people just want products they can use. So yeah, I obviously I know you said you're like echoing what I was saying, but I also like agree with you on the investment element. But I think there's just so much more to it, which is basically creating products that leverage the blockchain that people use just every day.
Yeah,
We're not there
absolutely.
yet, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think
Mm.
we're there yet either, but I'm definitely seeing that there's interest in all these creators of projects to, I don't know, maybe like seeking people with experience, because there's like you said, maybe also the new people to the environment doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be people that have no experience with technology or anything. There's a lot of people that are already like, I don't know, like well educated about technology, and or like they're really great marketers and really great, like, just, I don't know, just overall professionals in any single area that they want. And I think that it's really important to bring those people in to, like, the way you're saying,
Mhm.
just market these products more appropriately so that people actually want to buy these products, as opposed to just going to the centralized solution that they're, used to
Yeah.
having. And I think, yeah, you're absolutely right, we're not there yet, but there's actually a lot of energy going towards making sure that people actually buy these different products.
I think as well, it's like creating products that don't exist already. Like we
Exactly.
can create products on chain that exist off chain, and if there's not really any benefit to the end user, no one's going to use it. No one's going to buy it, except for the people that value the philosophies of blockchain, right? People who value like
Exactly.
trustlessness and decentralization, right? They'll buy these like decentralized products, but like when you compare it to the centralized product, if the use case or the value is exactly the same to the end user, they're not going to shift over that easily from a large, well established brand and company to a decentralized form. So you have to create something that adds like not just a little bit more value than what someone already
A
has.
lot
It's
more
like a
value. Yeah.
big jump. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Otherwise, there's not enough incentive for them to come and use that product. And I think we've seen that in the space, right? We have DeFi and we have some NFTs like ideas coming up, but that's all we've really got at the moment. And there's probably a lot of other specific things. There's like regenerative finance, as we know, doing some good work on creating like financial solutions that are better for the environment and so on and so
Yep.
forth. Um, but generally, we haven't got that many products that people who aren't aligned with crypto's philosophies will actually want to buy. We're kind of like creating products for existing crypto users, not creating products for non-crypto users.
Exactly.
And like, I'd really
That's a
like to
great
see
point.
that shift.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm always thinking about that, and a good friend of mine, like I was telling you about him, that he's like big on marketing and big on publishing, and that's what
Mhm.
he told me. Like he was completely new to crypto up until like 6 months ago, and he told me like, you guys really need to understand just exactly what you were saying. How are you gonna create something that it's gonna, on a value perspective, make it a no-brainer for people to get invested into the environment? And that's actually one of the things that I've been thinking about the most over the last couple of months, is just how,
Mhm.
as a community, are we focusing on that, on just like creating something that is such an irresistible value proposal for people that are, like you're saying, maybe they don't share the ethos of blockchain, but yeah, that's something that even keeps me up at night sometimes, like, okay, like we really got to get our minds wrapped around, like, how are we gonna like really present this as a like marketable product for people that are not like
Mhm.
super deep into crypto? That's a great point. That's absolutely, yeah, I agree with you. And what do you think gives the Cosmos ecosystem specifically like its key competitive advantages in this industry, and specifically with this point that you just highlighted? I think that's a great like point that we should address.
Yeah, I think like within the industry, the like so crypto native, like speaking first, like the main like advantages Cosmos offers is like a lot of choice around sovereignty over your
Yeah.
like chain, right? Like some people deploy an app on a chain, and there's an element of sovereignty which they have to sacrifice, right? Because they have to abide
Yeah.
by the chain's rules or like the
Yeah.
transaction speeds. There's only so much block space. There's a lot of
Yeah.
other competing apps, right? Um, and I think like a lot of people in the space are starting to realize this is a problem, right? Which is why we have like layer two solutions where like layer twos come in, they have their own execution environments. And I know this is all a bit technical, so hopefully people are following who listen. But basically, like you need other like execution environments for applications that use a lot of block space, because otherwise their transactions slow down, user experience goes down, and there's a lot of problems, right? And there's also like an element of having to follow the chain's rules. Like imagine you've got like a massive DeFi app like Uniswap, and then you've got another massive application that's like an NFT marketplace, like OpenSea, I guess. And like Uniswap's like, yeah, we want the chain to be as speedy as possible. We need it to be really, really fast, so like these trades can execute super quick. And we actually want to do like batch like transactions or something, so people can't front run of people, blah blah blah. And then there's like this NFT marketplace, which is no, we didn't care about any of that stuff. We actually care a lot more about this or that, something different. And so like these two apps want the chain to like focus in different directions on like how the chain's performing, or what like functions it prioritizes, right? And that creates like issues. Like maybe
Hmm.
not so many at the moment, but it can create issues, especially at mass adoption. And that's why you need alternative like chains with different like designs to basically specifically be built to enhance particular products, like specific products like DeFi apps, or specific products like NFT marketplaces. And this is still very crypto native we're talking here, but like essentially like by having something like Cosmos where you can, you know, whip up your own chain, and build that chain to perform in a way that enhances a particular type of application, it's like a huge advantage for applications that need that, and for applications that need their own block space, their own like execution environment to like work, compared to like being in like a jungle of applications on a single chain. And it goes even further than this, because Cosmos has like different ways or layers that you can actually get this like execution environment. Like I think the best way to put it is like there's different like designs you can go for, which is like imagine you're like a company who thinks, yeah, I want my own chain, I need my own execution environment, I need my own space to have like the transactions for my business on, or for
Yeah.
my customers to use. Then they're like, okay, so what I can either do is launch a new chain myself, and to do that I need to understand all this technical stuff, I need to know how to build a chain, I need to bootstrap a validator set, all of this stuff. Or I can get a shared security solution from the Cosmos Hub, and I don't have to worry about all the technical stuff as much, right? And I think like these two like different options suit different businesses. Like some businesses are going to say, "Hey, we already know a lot about this stuff. We're DYDX. We already know a lot about crypto. We're going to go
Yeah.
ahead and launch our own
Yeah.
chain. We're going to get our own like execution environment, and we're going to be happy. You know, we can launch our validated set. We're established. Blah blah blah." But like another business might be like, "Hey, like we only like really run art galleries in the real world. Like, what the hell is a validator set? Like,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
does
Yeah.
staking mean? Like,
Yeah.
they're the ones who are going to say, "Oh, Cosmos Hub, help us out here. We don't want to deal with all this. Like, we're really
Yeah.
good at running NFT galleries, but we're not very good at like running validator sets and stuff like that." So they can then choose, not to worry about the technical side of things. And I think the optionality of Cosmos is like really good for that, because you can launch your own chain. You can like decide how much control you need and how much sovereignty you need, and you can bootstrap in a way that suits you. And then when you add roll ups on top of that from, say, Celestia,
Hmm.
I think basically all the different levels of sovereignty that you need, and all the different types of execution environment you need, and like the areas of that you need to focus on, it's basically like a spectrum. It's got everything you need. And I think that's really appealing for people looking in.
Absolutely. And I think it goes back again to how can I create a product that is irresistible for people. And I think that's one of the main things that got me so interested in the Cosmos ecosystem. And I think that, yeah, absolutely, there's just overall sovereignty that you have in the space is what's ultimately gonna push people more into become invested in the Cosmos ecosystem more heavily, like both in a monetary aspect, but also in a how can I understand this better. So yeah, I think the point that you were just mentioning about uh, sovereignty and the power it gives to people, and it coming back to creating great products. At the end of the day, Cosmos, like, it's not exactly what it is, but it gives people the opportunity of through sovereignty and through being able to choose what type of chain they want to run or how they want to interact with all of these chains. Because, like you said, maybe they don't want to create their own individual chain and they want to, like you said, leverage the technology of this already existing chain and build something on top of it. And I think that's going to bring tremendous value to how people are going to be able to create super efficient products because you can integrate all this technology, like you said, like adding a Celestia, and maybe you want your, I don't know, your application to have you want to use something from the secret network because you want to implement it towards, like, there's just so many ways in which you can just leverage the entire Cosmos ecosystem to create great products. And we go back again to the same point. I think in the blockchain industry as a whole, I think that's one of the things that people are focusing the most on. Like, how can I create a way that people create amazing products in an incredibly easy way without having to think about all this programming and all this, how am I going to set up a node and how am I going to do all these things? It's like, no, here's your SDK, and now you just feel free to use this tool that I already created and just go crazy, knock yourself out, right?
Totally, yeah. And I think that's the thing, that applications are so much easier to deploy.
Yep,
But I think Cosmos are trying to like create that ease of deployment for chains, basically. And yeah, that's going to be really important because we were talking about like how like this design from Cosmos might get like new people into the space and really like appeal to the average person. Like we were talking about like creating a product people can use. It's not a crypto product. It's just like products for like anyone.
exactly.
Um, and I don't know whether that would be Cosmos or someone else who can do that the best. But I think Cosmos definitely has a case for creating a business like product almost of the designs of chains they can launch, and making it very easy for people to come and deploy like business chains. So yeah, they've definitely got a shot, but there's still a lot of work to be done.
Absolutely. Yeah, tons of work, but I think that the commitment is there, and just there's some amazing people that have come over from, that they're maybe Cosmos native, but there's people that are coming from other ecosystems that are noticing the value in the Cosmos ecosystem. And like you said,
Hmm.
maybe Cosmos is the one that achieves it, maybe it's not the one that achieves it, but as of this moment, I think it's the protocol in which we're all going to invest the largest amount of our time to understanding how to build it better, like to make it easier, even easier for people to create their own chains for creating all these solutions for these real world problems. So Liam, what are some of the things that you are most excited about, like both present and future, about the Cosmos ecosystem, then, like, going from what we were just discussing?
Um, yeah, so I look at the ecosystem as there's like the Cosmos hub. There'd be like an economic zone around the hub, and then there's like the broader ecosystem, which has a lot of different hubs and a lot of different apps and
Yep.
so on. I think for like the Cosmos Hub in particular, obviously I'm very excited for shared security, allowing like Atom to finally kind of build out an economic zone around the Atom token and the Cosmos Hub blockchain. I think that's going to be really exciting to see how that goes, especially as the most established chain in Cosmos, and really having the sight and vision to build out what now everyone is using. This technology of IBC. And these like sovereign zones and so on. So that's really exciting. Obviously, they're having a lot of things launch around that zone. They have a general asset issuance chain, which will be issuing native
Mm-hmm.
USDC. So that's very exciting. Really interested to see what other chains and other products and businesses come into Cosmos, leveraging that design of um, interchain security. So not having to bootstrap a chain from scratch, and actually leveraging the Atom token. That's really exciting, I think. And along with that, Celestia is probably going to be very exciting. I think that's launching in 2023 because it's going to create permissionless solutions for people to connect to a modular chain
Yeah.
through rollups. So that's like a similar level of excitement. Um, but for the whole like ecosystem, I think one of the things I'm more interested in is actually NFTs and culture. Like I think there's a lot of NFTs and a lot of culture that's going to be coming into Cosmos that I think's what we need to get the everyday person into the space, right? Like DeFi is very exciting. It's financial, but culture is a lot bigger than finance. You know, finance is a small part of culture. And as soon as we start getting these cultural ideas and products coming onto chains in the Cosmos ecosystem, I think that's when we see the mass of people coming into the space. I like games. I think games are really
Oh yeah.
exciting. I think what Passage is doing is
Yes,
very
that's what I
interesting.
was just gonna say. Yeah, what Passage is doing is amazing.
Very interesting.
Yeah, we had the opportunity of
How much
talking
have you
to.
followed Passage?
Oh, I mean, we followed Passage for ever since. Like one of my mentors in this space was also part of our community,
Mm.
Wolf. It was actually one of the. I don't know if it was the first project he told me about, but he was always going on about, yeah, Passage, and you have to buy these NFTs and Town One and Town Two, and then we had the opportunity of talking to RL in Cosmoverse and have a conversation with him. And it's just, I think it's going to be an amazing project. And it all came, a funny story, it all came like that entire conversation came because, so this member of our community, his, his user picture was actually a Passage NFT, and another girl in our community actually went ahead and like manually like draw this NFT and like frame it and put like a QR code specific to like she did like this amazing artwork. And when RL saw the like that, he was like, whoa, like this is amazing,
No.
like because we see all these images on a computer screen and all those things, but like whenever, like when you see it actually like in a physical format, like in front of you, and just the even the possibilities of that, and it all, again, it comes back to like solving problems for real life. Yeah, but yeah, Passage is an amazing project, and RL is an amazing guy, and all the work that they're doing. And I know that right now they're like in overdrive, and I remember looking at the first pictures of like them implementing like Unreal Engine to like there
Hmm.
is just amazing. Like, and I think that gaming is a central part of our culture right now. Like, I grew up playing video games, you grew up playing video games, and it just brings a lot of even economic opportunities to the table. And I know there's a lot of gamers that don't particularly agree with that, but it is my view that there's tremendous value to be added in the gaming industry.
100%. And like, Passage is so much more than just
Yeah,
gaming. It's like very social.
totally.
There's a lot of world building sort of stuff
Yeah,
that's being worked on. I always have to be careful. Like I'm very closely like in touch with like Lex and Errol, so it's it's so hard like to not say something that maybe they're not ready
yeah,
to share with like the
yeah, yeah,
community.
yeah,
But I think like they're actually one of the most under maybe not underrated but undiscovered like chains
yeah,
like for the next year. Like I really think they have everything, not everything right, because obviously they'll make mistakes, things will go wrong or things will need to improve in areas, but like they have a lot of philosophies in my opinion right when it comes to like the things that are important to make a successful product and a successful chain, focusing on like everyday people, getting new people into the space, that kind of thing.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, mistakes are going to be made, but the important thing is just that the technology is there and they're committed to making it work. So I think we can expect amazing things from them. I think we could just sit here for another extra hour and talk about all these amazing projects that are going to come out. So we're going to have to bring you to the show again to continue this conversation. But yeah,
Definitely.
yeah, I think the Cosmos ecosystem is amazing. 2023 is going to be a great year, like in every single aspect. And again, people shouldn't be focusing as much on price action. Sure, price is important, but what's important is the development going on. Like you said at the beginning, that is what drives price action. What's happening to the fundamentals of a project and how valuable a project can ultimately become, and how valuable the products they're putting out will become. So I think 2023 is going to
Hmm.
be an
Yeah.
amazing year. I think the Cosmos ecosystem is a great ecosystem in general. The community is fantastic. We're gonna keep seeing all these meetups happening all over the place. The community will be even stronger, uh, and I think that's what counts the most. Like whenever market conditions are not the best, and you see so much commitment from everyone to making sure that
Hmm.
this works, is really what like makes me get up in the morning and come to work. honestly.
Yeah, absolutely agree with a lot of what you said there, and I share your like passion and interest for the space, and it's definitely revitalizing seeing the energy from everyone here.
Absolutely. Liam, I would like to close up the interview with a series of rapid fire questions. So just come, like, whatever comes first to your mind, just go ahead. Okay.
Sure,
I
gotcha.
think I think you mentioned this earlier, but which was the first coin you ever owned and why?
Bitcoin, just because it was the first that I discovered, and the price was going up, so
Good, good,
thank goodness
good.
it was because it got me into the space.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And I know you're more of a wine guy, but what's your favorite beer?
Oh, Stella, I guess. I don't really drink
Stella.
beer, so
I know.
Stella
Yeah, you're
Artois
more of
is
a wine.
probably,
Yeah. What then?
yeah,
What is
more of
your
a wine
favorite wine
drinker.
then?
I'm not fussy as long as it's red and not cheap. It's
As long as
good.
it's red and it's cool and it's in my glass, I'm happy.
I'm happy. Yeah, free wine. Free wine is the best wine.
Liam, what's your favorite hobby?
Football, I'd say.
Football.
I'm very big on my like playing football. This is I play like 4 or 5 times a week. There's a real like flow state and zen to playing football and playing sport, so I really enjoy it.
Absolutely. Liam, what's your favorite book?
Ooh, a little bit of recency bias, but I'm a massive fan of the Witcher books, like the
Oh,
series.
really?
It's a
Okay.
fantasy series. Yeah, I've recently been playing back through the Witcher 3 game because I've been ill, so it's a bit of recency bias, but like I just love the world. But I guess from an educational perspective, I actually really like candlestick trading books and chart
Okay.
analysis types of content. Yeah.
Okay. Were you devastated when Henry Cavill said that he was not going to play Geralt anymore in the series?
Not really, because the TV series doesn't follow the book anyway. So I was
Absolutely.
kind of like, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Actually, it was funny
yeah,
because he himself is a big fan, and I heard like a bunch of stories that he was constantly like correcting everyone, like, well, no, that's actually not what happened in the book. So yeah, I think they lost a great asset there because yeah, he was really
definitely, he
passionate
was
about the
really
Witcher
good at the
books.
role.
Yeah,
Yeah. If they had just stuck
absolutely,
to the story, they could have had a really solid series there, and they could have gone and done their own thing, like by covering like parts of the universe that've not been done yet. So
absolutely.
yeah, it's
I
a
agree with
shame,
you.
but yeah, the books are better than the series. Definitely give them a read. They're a bit of a slog because there's a lot of like conversation. You kind of get lost in these little like points, but like definitely recommend it over the series.
Awesome. I'll definitely give it a go. And Liam, if you could choose between flying and being invincible, which one would you choose and why?
Being invincible,
Being invincible.
just
Okay.
because like flying, like how would you fly? Are you gonna flap your arms? Are you gonna
Yeah,
like fly
yeah,
like Superman?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's a lot of work. Like I can't imagine like being able to fly. Like it must take hours to fly over the
yeah.
sea, and like if they take a lot of energy,
That's a good
man.
point. Yeah, that's a good point. You would need like a yeah, you would need like your wingman to like maybe like, hey man, I need a break. Like just I need some
Yeah, please
water.
take over.
Yeah, like this. I
Yeah,
thought it was gonna be cool, but it turns out it's not.
it's it'd be handy for like short distance for sure. But
Exactly,
yeah,
to get out of
being
traffic.
being invincible seems a lot easier.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, traffic. Yeah, just fly over the traffic and yeah, for sure.
Good. And Liam, what do you think the prices of Bitcoin and Atom will be 2 years from today?
2 years. It's 2022. Very tricky.
I
Very
know,
very
right?
tricky. Yeah, I mean we don't know if this is like close to the bottom yet. Like so, who knows? Um, I think 2 years today, so the 20th of December in 2024, I think Bitcoin would be pretty trading around like 30,000 maybe. I think Atom will be trading around like $10, $20. I don't see like a very sharp, quick recovery. So I'm expecting like a really boring year um, in terms of price action, but I'm open to being surprised and price to be a lot higher by then.
Absolutely. I think we're all ready to be surprised. But yeah, I think I share your
Yeah.
opinion. So we'll see what happens. Liam, this has been an absolute pleasure. I want to acknowledge you for the hard work you do within the ecosystem, for all the amazing content that you're creating, for helping people understand fundamentals and to not lose an airdrop. So thank you so much for spending some of your time with us, and I'm really looking forward to bringing you to the show again.
Thanks, man, and it's been a blast. You present really well on the podcast, so keep it up, and I hope you yeah, have a good rest of your year. Enjoy the Christmas period.
Thank you so much, man. You too. Drink lots of wine.
I will be.
Awesome. Take care, man.
Take care.